Hi everyone, Nothony Breaks Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Caroline Polachek record, Desire I Want to Turn Into You. Art pop singer and songwriter Caroline Polachek, this is her second full-length studio LP. Longtime indie and indie pop fans will remember her for at one point being one half of the duo Chairlift. She recently began to make more of a name for herself as a solo artist, most notably with her very successful debut, 2019's Pang, which at the time was one of the better art pop records to drop in a while. And going into this new LP, I didn't really have too many hopes or expectations other than Caroline would sort of beat the sophomore slump curse, that she would maybe up the ante a little bit, possibly show another side of herself, or just prove that Pang wasn't a fluke. And yeah, as it turns out, Desire I Want to Turn Into You is quite the impressive pop record. It rules right from the intro track, Welcome to My Island, which is an anthem that is as wide and as vast as a mountain range, complete with roaring 80s arena rock guitars and chants of, hey, 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 borderline unhinged, but still very powerful vocalizations from Caroline herself, jumping really high into her falsetto range. The whole track is a triumphant shock to the system. It's like what standing under a waterfall must feel like. Plus, there's so much going on the track between the instrumentation, the establishing imagery of the record too. Really feels like Caroline's using music and art in this instance to enter another world or plane of existence, which I think the cover here itself depicts. I mean, look at her crawling with headphones over her ears in what looks like a subway, but just in front of her is this whole body of sand, as if what she's moving toward were a beach or something. This track is also where the title of this album is most heavily referenced, because the restlessness on this record to just embody something else is intense. Caroline is literally proclaiming on this track she wants to be a feeling. On the following Pretty Impossible, we get these cute, scatty vocal leads and cycling beats, both of which give this track a kind of throwback vibe. But Caroline's elegant art pop production and dynamic singing keep the track sounding more modern than nostalgic. Think Suzanne Vega's Tom's Diner, but if it could have the futuristic indie-tronic production of Imogen Heap. Also with this track, I would say the Dido feature on the back end of the album makes so much more sense too. From here we have Bunny is a Rider, which I believe was the first taste we had of this album cycle. It has grown on me a little bit since I originally caught it, but I'm still not crazy about how skeletal the verses are, as well as the lyrics just being so repetitive. The track feels like it's missing the extravagance that many of the other songs on this LP bring, though I do respect that Caroline tries to use this track as another opportunity to reinforce the album's overall themes of escapism. The track Sunset, though, does bring an interesting twist to the table, where we essentially get a bit of flamenco pop with guitars and beats and very sharp lead melodies that are assembled in such a tight way they feel kind of robotic, synthetic. I think the idea is for the beat to sound, I don't know, like a copy or imaginary in some way. Plus, on top of it, Caroline's free-flowing vocals provide such a nice, smooth, and organic contrast. Crude Drawing of an Angel Next, I think, is actually pretty accurate to its title, given how the structure of this one is sort of choppy and ill-defined. The instrumental on this one is a little bare, feels a little half-baked, but the atmosphere surrounding it is vast. I take away more from the vocals and tragic lyrics on the track than anything. The track doesn't have a super conclusive finish, but in a way I suppose it does run like one of the more abstract pieces on side B of Kate Bush's Hounds of Love. I catch a similar vibe off of the string sections and fantastical group vocals on Hope Drunk Ever Asking, which again, while it's on, is stunningly beautiful, and I just wish it had a stronger, more conclusive ending to it. Then I Believe is one of a few tracks on here that brings some vintage dance pop vibes, with some shimmering, massive, gated synth hits, a great strong beat too. Sort of checks all the basic stylistic boxes for something in this vein, but between the production and Caroline's vocals, there is just a whimsical and glamorous edge to all of it. I think the song Smoke brings a similar mix of vibes too, but to go back to I Believe, some of Caroline's falsetto vocal runs on this track are insane, absolutely insane, and the theatrical chord changes on the bridge are a nice touch too. Then Fly to You with Grimes and Dido is surprising for a few reasons. One, because I don't think you ever expect to see those names on the same track with Caroline Polachek, and two, it actually comes out great. Yeah, the mix of people here is unlikely, but it is fireworks, as each voice and each artist brings their own melody, their own flavor, their own personality to the song, over these ethereal tones, delay-soaked vocal chops, and a very speedy breakbeat too. Blood and Butter is another very strong single from the project that sounds just as good in the mix with all the other tracks. If you could somehow slow down Savage Garden's I Want You and add some foreign spices to it here and there, you'd be about in the ballpark of this song's vibe. Plus there's some killer bagpipes on the back end of this one too. Plus Caroline's vocals sound as powerful as ever as she goes on to describe more escapism, but this time in relation to love. Say you want to show me a place, the place is here, the here is inside you. Later in the track she goes on to ask, where did you come from? You. Lot of the imagery on the track like something out of an idyllic postcard. Butterfly Net is a mystical piece of prog pop with a little organ solo in the first half that goes over incredibly well. And what I think is the most surreal imagery coming out of the lyrics on the entire record turns up on this track too. Across this LP, I'm just impressed with Caroline's deep devotion to couching these songs and this music in an otherworldly dream state. This thing is definitely a win for world building through music. The closing track finishes things up with a really curious lead melody and the most infatuated and lovesick lyrics on the entire record too. Whoever is the object of these descriptions, Caroline may have a crush. The beat on this thing throbs like a heart. The intensely swirling tones across the track are great too. Then that children's chorus at the very end, it's pretty immaculate and a very strong ending to a very great record. And yeah, overall I think Caroline Polachek does it again, makes another banger of an art pop release. And for sure this thing is going to pan out to be one of the best pop records of the year. There were a few cuts in the track list that felt maybe a little underwritten, especially when it comes to progression and endings, but that didn't really wreck my experience with the LP overall. The vast majority of this thing is great, is impressive, and is some of Caroline's best work yet. I'm feeling a strong 8 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Caroline Polachek, Desire Forever.